Welcome back to the Projection Podcast. I'm your host, Hector Flores, and today we got a special guest coming in, and we got Trey Robledo. Trey, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I appreciate you having me on.
Trey is DST San Antonio, the pitching director. And pretty much today, man, I wanted to bring you in so you can kind of discuss a lot about what you guys do at DST. People can know a little bit about you and overall, man, how these pitchers can overall take care of themselves and get better. Let's go ahead and just get right into it. So, Trey, tell us a little bit about where you're from, man. Where you went to high school? You know, obviously you played baseball. At what age did you start? And things like that.
Yeah, so I'm from Fredericksburg, Texas. Went to Fredericksburg High School. Man, I've been playing baseball since, I don't know, probably 3 years old. So I just kind of grew up doing it. I remember watching I want to say it was the Cubs playing. I told my dad, like, hey, that's what I want to do right there. Like, so I just ran with it from there. Started out at a D3, and, you know, I put on about 30 pounds. And I was a little undersized coming out of high school. Put on 30 pounds, velo ticks up to like 88. And I was like, man, I got a shot at this.
Yeah. So
I transferred out, went to a JUCO, and did really well. You know, I had some D1 offers. I ended up going to an NAI just up the road in Shreveport, LSUS. Did well. They really helped me develop. They helped me understand a lot of things. And going from there, you know, I get picked up by Milwaukee. I had a UCL injury. Set me back. Ended up getting released. Kept training, went back, finished my education, and then I went to Canada and played in Canada. Had a little setback in there, and so then that's one of my buddies was like, hey, go to DST, train at DST. So I got a Tomball for an off season.
Oh, so you went to the Tomball facility out there.
So I ended up at the Tomball one. And it was cool meeting Poppy and all those guys, and that's really where I kind of like dove into this side of things and started learning more. It's like understanding the process.
Yeah.
It taught me a lot, and it helped a lot, obviously. Like,
well,
I found a lot of health.
Yeah, so like what you do now, man, it's crazy because you have to it's a learning cycle. You got to keep learning to be able to develop, you know, these young athletes and, you know, minor league guys and professional guys. You have to understand the body and the mechanics and all that. So like going through this process for you, did you obviously you're going to learn as time goes, but being with bigger names, is there somebody who really like mentored you during that stage where you're like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to train these kids. I'm going to be the best I possibly can and be, you know, the pitching director.
Yeah. So the biggest mentor initially, right, when I was in Tomball was obviously kind of being able to talk and relate with Poppy on a lot of things. And then like my biggest mentor as far as the pitching side was David Evans, who's at a Premier, but he works with all the pro guys. So he's worked with guys like Shane Boss, Trevor Bauer, all those guys. And just learning from him, sitting there and going through my training. I'd be there for 4 hours a day and just kind of picking his brain and just even sitting there if I wasn't bullpenning and learning, processing, you know. And then I had some buddies that, you know, they learned from the baseball ranch and they learned from David.
Yeah.
And we just went through that and just kind of talked and just really dissected and digested things and understood. Once I had that understanding, like, okay, I know what to look for. I know the sequence. And I know what I got to do moving forward. And so I found like a really good passion for that. You know, so then end up landing a contract, go play down in Mexico, COVID hits, keep training, move back to Fredericksburg, and then the DST here opens up. So it's like, you know, like, let's go give it a shot. Let's go work out over there. Keep rolling through that. And then I get ready to go back into Mexico to play again. And I go down there. And for me, I don't know if it was just the timing and everything. Like, it just being out of, like, the competition for a while, like, you know, it just wasn't it for me anymore. And so I was like, you know, to be honest, I went back and worked on a ranch for 2 weeks. You know, I called Mo. I was like, hey, I got to stay in it, man. Like, so 2 weeks later, Mo called me back, and he's like, hey, like, got a job for you. Come on. So it's pretty cool.
So you got that opportunity right away, man.
Yep.
That's crazy because it's crazy where, like, and I like to know people's stories like that. Like,
today's show is brought to you by Marco Bass Law Firm. You can reach him at marcobass.com or go to 210-239-6944.
Like, where you're at, you know, where you started from, what did you do to get where you're at now? And it's like moving up the ladder, dude. It's a process that nobody takes because it's You got to be patient. You got to learn from a lot of other people, and you got to be open to different ideas. And I think in baseball, you have to be able to generate all these ideas coming from different perspectives, because at the end of the day, it's only going to make you better.
Yep.
You know, and you're around some talented individuals, so your word means a lot. You know, and that's exactly why I wanted to kind of bring you in today. But as far as like the DST, you know, I know there's one in Houston, right? There's a Tomball area.
So there's 3 in Houston. So there's a DST North, which is in Tomball. There's DST West, which is at Houston Christian, and there's DST South. And then we also have a location.
And those are all Houston areas, those 3?
It's all Houston area. And then they opened up one in Arizona. I want to say at Arizona Christian. And then from there, we opened the one here in San Antonio.
And you guys been open for how long now?
About 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. And you guys are picking up, man.
Yeah, I've been there for about 1.5 years now, and it's been pretty cool, man. It's been a pretty good blessing.
So what is DST's mission as far as getting these players?
I think if we, is encourage, empower, and equip, right? Like, so that's our pillars. And I think our biggest mission is, like, if we're married to health, then we're going to be pretty successful, right? Like, if we care about these athletes enough and get them conditioned enough to go through the different training cycles that they need to go through, they're going to find a pretty good general health, right? They're going to be able to last for 162 if they're a major league guy,
right,
or 100 games if they're a minor league guy. And so going through that, like, you kind of challenge the organism, right? So if we challenge the organism, we right stress, right stimulus, right? We go through the right stress, right stimulus, and we go into season, we're fully equipped. So like if you think like a big league pitcher, I think they go through about 280 throws per start. And that's from, plyo work to catch play to bullpen. That's like 5 throws every 5 throws every minute. So they go from that, and it counts all the in-between throws from start to finish, 280. So it's like, how are we armoring guys and helping guys to withstand that workload, and their bodies can handle it? So through all the 7 cycles of training that we go through at DST, like, whether it's isos or eccentrics or, strength and speed, we can dive into that side. But they go through that with the right approach, and it's baseball-related specific movements. It's helped guys kind of find that health. And I think the biggest jump has been kind of the re-education process that guys are going through, right? So they go through the biomechanics assessment. It's kind of like we were talking earlier about Josh Wilder, right?
Yeah.
Kid that was at Brown, he's at Clemson now. He came in, he had Tommy John, so we start working. I'm like, hey, like, this is out of whack. You got to move better. We got to get layback going. We got to get shoulder, external, internal rotation strength up. So we go through all that process. He goes from 80 to 89, 91. I'm like, dude, there's more in there. This kid's 6'4", 225, 230 pounds. So I'm like, you got to move down the mound, dude. And so we get him moving down the mound, 88, 91, first summer, comes back. And so we had Leaf Yoki, who's the CEO, comes in and does that assessment with him. And I kid you not, like 2 weeks later, this kid's 94, 95.
Dude, so this assessment, like, can you get this assessment pretty quick, or does it take a few days or a week, or what exactly is involved during the actual assessment?
So when we go into the assessment, we have Evan Wagner, he's pretty special, right? Like, he's really good. He's pretty thorough with the process and understands what he's looking for. So you gotta basically, if you call in, or you really, if you just walk through the door, that's the easiest way to get in contact with us and just kind of ask and find out more. We usually schedule it on Wednesdays, and then
as far as the assessment,
that's usually the most open day. Because the way our training works, it's basically like a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday with the Wednesday rest day, and then weekend rest day. Mm-hmm. So Wednesdays are usually most open for us when the pro guys aren't in the morning, or most kids are taking off that Wednesday to rest too. So he goes through it. We check, how the hips are moving, it goes down it goes ankles, knees, hips, and then we check thoracic. We check, we cover all the joints, elbow, shoulder, ranges of motion. We're making sure we're going through all that. And so it's kind of like what with Josh, right? Like his hips were locked up, his scaps were locked up. So when we think about like scaps locking up as a baseball player, we're so one-sided. So like eventually like those muscles are going to tighten up. One scap is going to pull down or one scap's going to elevate. And so like Josh's problem is I want to say his right side was decompressed. And so we went in and we did some re-educations as far as like scapular movement, some T-spine stuff, and a bunch of other items that Lee Fiocchi, the CEO, had programmed out for him. And so, he programs that out, and then he has tight hips, so we go into like a half kneeling Nordic, right? So he goes through that, and again, 2 weeks later, he's 92, 95, 94, 95, he goes to this, now he's hoping for a shot at Clemson as a walk-on.
Wow.
So it'd be pretty special if he gets it.
Yeah, so these assessments for you, right, they target certain areas. So as you being, the guru that you are and know, what comes at stake. So if someone goes in and does this assessment and you're talking about scaps, there's different workouts and techniques that you can touch on to focus on that, right? Is that pretty much how you get the assessment, and then it goes, okay, you're going to branch off into, this section, if it's your shoulder or your elbow or you got some tightness, you can kind of piggyback. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, so it kind of it puts our athletes like in different buckets, right? Like it helps us organize them in the right way and say, hey, like this guy needs this guy needs this. And it's really like a grouping process, right?
Okay.
So just because one guy's doing a half kneeling Nordic and another guy's doing a 90-90 hip turnover, right? That's where it gets more individualized. Like they have a same concept of weight training and a priming system before they get going, whether it's a dynamic stretch, dynamic warm-up, right? So we're priming, spinning blood. Like these guys are responsible when they come in before they even do that process to do the re-educations. Whether they got to strengthen internal stuff, whether internal rotation, external rotation, or they got to strengthen hip mobility or find more mobility, right? So like a guy that's hypermobile, we're not going to say, hey, get more mobile. No, we're going to give you exercises to kind of strengthen up and build strength in those passive ranges of motion.
Dude, that's interesting, man. Because my buddy, I had this exact conversation with him about, the tightness and you want to be loose as a player. And he pretty much described about, these assessments that are being taken part of, and then how they just make incredible, your goal jumps from, a 5-month process to like you're making improvement in week 1 or week 2. And I've seen it with my own eyes because being around you and
taking a quick break. Want to know how to support our show? Go down below and like and subscribe and turn on post notifications. Back to the show.
The facility and going out and seeing some players, and I've seen guys start at 87, 88, and they just start jumping up to 93, 94. I'll get that call like, dude, what are you guys doing over there? You know what I mean? Which is it's cool, man. Yeah. And I mean, it's a lot that goes into it, obviously, right? Because you want to focus on the little stuff.
Yeah.
But kind of like at the end of the day, as far as like a younger athlete, right? Like a kid, what would you think as far as I want to be a pitcher, right? This kid, he's going to be a PO. What would you consider for these guys to take into consideration at a young age as far as just the pitching side?
I think, at a young age with youth guys, right? If we think because I've worked with kids that are 8 years old, 12 years old. I think the biggest thing for that age group is like, go be an athlete, right? Like have fun. Like if you love pitching, absolutely. Let's get off the mound. But like, it's a rotational sport. Go swing the bat still. If you want to play basketball, go play basketball. If you want to play football, go play football. But be a kid, right? Don't hyper focus into being a baseball player unless that's truly what you love. There's nothing wrong with being a one sport athlete. Like that's what I was. That's what I did.
Yeah.
And it helped, right? But I think with the youth kids, like, of course, come in. We're gonna make it fun. I'm not gonna tell you, hey, your arm action's doing this, or that. I'm gonna give those kids. I don't want them to process that. Like I want them to be an athlete, move the way the body needs to move. And I think if we do the right drills and constraints, then the body's gonna organize the way it needs to, and it's gonna prep these kids down the road.
Yeah, because nowadays you hear, parents and coaches, hey, this guy's throwing this hard at 11, 12 years old. It's like, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's a proven fact that when you get older, you just had a guy bump up, 5-6 miles an hour, in 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, that can happen as long as you do the little stuff right. So for younger guys, it's like, have fun. Obviously, the fundamentals, right, and the mechanics, that goes a long way. Do you think, like, the mechanics as far as a kid can play out a big role? If you learn that properly at a young age, you think it's going to be very, very helpful when they're older?
Oh, 100%. So I had a kid that came in probably a year ago, about 8 years old. He's 9 now. And, man, when he threw, it was just like the goofiest thing. Mm-hmm. And if you were to look at it from him at 8 years old to now, right, being 9.5 years old, completely different player. Like, the kid was sidearm, like, way down here, body still upright.
Oh, wow.
And then I'm like, we got to fix this, right? So
that's bad.
This kid coordinates everything. And, like, you look at him and you're like, that's an efficient mover at 9 years old, right? You need strength and all that to go into it and add up to it. But he's 9, right? Let the kid be a kid. And all we did was like, hey, come in, be an athlete, and just throw, right? Throw to grow. It kind of goes into the Jaeger mindset of like throw to grow, nurse the arm, feed the arm, but also give the arm time to rest. So it's cool when you see it with those younger athletes. Now, when we kind of dive into kids that are like 12 years old, now we have some kids that are in the weight room. Doesn't mean we have them under a bar, right? Like,
yeah,
they're going to go through goblet squats. Like, we got to protect their growth plates, right? Like, most kids' maturity doesn't happen until they're 16, right? So they could be 16 and their bones are still malleable, so it still puts them at risk for, growth plate injuries and stuff like that. So a lot of my kids are like, well, I want to pull down. I'm like, you're not gonna do it like the older guys are. Like, there's gonna be a different method.
It's a whole different process at that age.
And so I think that's a big issue with like youth sports is, we're having all these growth plate injuries, we're having all these early on onset arm injuries, and it's like, where's this stemming from? And it's like, well, people look at the stigma of weighted balls or plyos, right? It's like, it's not that. You throw a tennis ball, right? Like, you throw a football, right? You throw a baseball. You throw rocks. You've been throwing weighted balls your whole life as you grow up. So, that's not the issue. I think it comes down to just the overuse aspect. Like, kids are playing year-round, and they're not getting enough time in between for their bodies to grow and mature and then take the next leap. So, like, with some parents, it's like, hey, like, it's okay to take a break.
Yeah, and a lot of these parents, they don't want it.
Yeah, they just want to keep rolling and rolling.
So, like, Little League arm, you hear that a lot.
Yeah.
What is the signs? Like, what is actually Little League arm? Like, you hear Little League arm, a lot of people don't know what Little League arm is, Yeah, what actually is Little League arm?
Typically, it's like it's the tennis elbow, right? Mm-hmm. So it's where the tendons, they take a lot of stress, and kids are growing at that age, and so they get the tennis elbow, and the ligaments and the tendons, they aren't ready for that. It's overuse, right? Like,
that's where the overuse comes in.
Yeah, and I think that's where Little League actually itself did a good job at incorporating pitch count and stuff like that. But I think for parents to understand when they're out there, whether they're throwing a bullpen with their son or, have them throwing, like, take that into account. Like, there's no reason to have your kid throwing, 50 pitch bullpens.
Man, dude, I got some serious. When I see stuff like that, I have to speak up and say something.
Absolutely.
Because it's like, what are you doing to this kid? Because for coaches and parents, they're like, oh yeah, we're winning this, we're winning that. Who cares? But if my opinions at that age for people like that, I'm not afraid to speak up, man, because you and I know that's just wrong.
Yeah.
I've heard, dude, it was crazy the other day because there was a kid, the parent reached out, oh, he pitched pretty good, this and that, And, okay, well, how did it go? Well, he threw, 5 innings and he threw 95 pitches. I'm like, the kid's 10. Like, what are you doing? Like, who's his coach?
Yep.
I'm like, I don't want to get too much involved in all that because at the end of the day, it's not too much of my business. But at the end of the day, I don't want to see kids get injured and get hurt because of stupidity like that.
Yep.
It's not really stupidity. It's just more of as those guys unawareness and being selfish.
Yep.
But so like going back to that Little League arm, like educating all these youth coaches, man, that's where the groundwork starts. right?
Yeah.
You want to be able to educate them and do that
Let
the
them
right
rest.
way. When do you think is a good time to, like, guys actually picking up weights? Or what do you think about weighted balls too?
So I think I'm a big fan of them, right?
Yeah.
But also at the same time, like, there's a mind-body, like, disconnection, right? So guys will throw a plyo, and they'll be like, boom, all right, that's the move. I got it. All right, cool. I go throw a baseball, that move goes out the window, right? So I've been kind of working on my own set of plyos and diving into that, where they're different. I don't want to talk about it just yet, but they're different to kind of help that mind-body connection. So now you go from plyos to like a weighted baseball. So I think, you know, you see people pulling down this, and this, and, you know, I've let some kids pull down, whether it's a 4 ounce or a 6 ounce. But when they're pulling those down, they have a set target of like intent on it. Like don't go yank a 6 ounce at 100%. Like, use it as a warm up, a primer. So a lot of the times with, you know, the weighted ball progression we go through, it's more of, hey, this is your warm up. It's not for training velocity purposes. Like, we train velocity based off of what we do in the weight room and with the 5 ounce, you know. So the weighted baseballs itself are more of a tool to kind of help make that mind-body connection.
Well, obviously, when you do the weighted balls, you want to make sure your fundamentals are correct. You can't be throwing a weighted ball and you're like leading with your elbow or dropping down and doing some stupid stuff like that, because you're obviously at one point something's gonna pop in there, you know. So like going back to these workouts, right, where you're doing these assessments, like, you think it's a lot of like feel, like, and obviously as you get older, you can start feeling these ranges of motion, these little workouts. Like when you're talking about like the intention of training with a good mindset, what exactly do you mean by that?
I think it's being aware of what your body's doing, right? Like, it's having feel, it's having awareness. I think our hitting director talks about it the most, Kevin. Like, you got to have feel, right? Like, if you don't have, like, if you're on a baseball field, right, you got feel, you have an idea of what's about to develop in the play. Like, you're ahead of the moment, right? So when you're in the weight room, like, you know, if you, as a kid, like, you're gonna do a goblet squat, like, you got to understand that, like, your body's hinging, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm focusing on that hinge, and that's what I want to happen. So I think if you can develop feel in an athlete, then everything else is easy, right? They understand, like, oh, I'm hinging now when I'm hitting.
Yeah.
So, like, a lot of our youth guys, they'll go into, like, they'll focus on that hinge, right? And so they'll go into the hinge, and they'll hammer it out. And I think what our weight room does is really it complements what I do. It complements what happens in our hitting area. Not to take away from what we do in both those areas, but, like, you know, without a baseline of strength, like, you're not going to throw hard. You're not going to hit the ball far.
Well, that's why you guys are good at what you do, because these kids are maturing at a young age because of the feel.
Yep.
You got to feel. You got to know what you're doing. You got to know where your arm slot's at, you know, different perspectives of your using your backside and little things like that. It's crazy. If you talk to a kid and, like, hey, you can have a grown man conversation about feel, and it's like, dude, you're 12 years old. This is awesome. Like, we need more of that, guys, and especially in the youth. Like, when I talk to a youth player and they talk to me about feel, or I'm dragging my backside, I'm like, dude, who's your coach? Tell him to call me. I want to talk more baseball about him. He's doing a good job. And I think that's a good way to put it, because if you got those youth guys, you're showing them the right way. They're maturing at what they do, and at the end of the day, all that is gonna bind
mesh
together, and it's gonna be like, dude, this dude's a dude, man, you know. And that's what development and potential, like these scouts and people like myself, like, if I'm looking at a 13, 14-year-old kid, I want to know if he's mature, if he feels, if he knows the game, who's his resource, who's helping him out. And I think that's really cool, man, because obviously DST, it's a lot of time and effort. Like, the parents got to buy in and the kids. So can you talk a little bit about how the parent aspect of them understanding all that, because it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I try to have conversations with parents, you know, regularly, right? Like whether it's a phone call or 2 phone calls or a few phone calls a week, and checking in with them and talking to them about like, hey, like this is where he's at. This is what's happening. Like, you know, and I had one parent, you know, I have a kid and he's a sophomore in high school. He grew, he's like 6'4", 6'5". Now he's a sophomore in high school. And his mom was like, he could never bend over and like touch his toes. It's like for the first time I've seen him actually be able to bend over and touch his toes.
Wow.
You know, the kid's actually going back to the parents and saying like, hey, like we're doing this, this, and this, right? So I think the biggest like connection point is like, how are we communicating to the kid to get back with the parents on what's happening, you know? And so then you go back and it's the same communication happening to the parent now that's happening to the player of like, this is the process, this is where we're at, and this is what we're trying to get to, you know? Now that kid doesn't, right? He's gone from 190 to 200, 205, right? His biggest issue is let's get stronger. Let's move a little better. So now that he's moving better, right? Like I still want to see him arm action body movements get better before I even really want to think about a velocity phase with this kid. He's 6'4", man. Chances are he's going to be able to throw hard by moving better. You know, it takes a more of a holistic approach with his development.
When do you play a role? Like, what has to get done first, or what do you have to see in a pitcher to be able to be like, okay, now it's time to work on some velo?
I think it's more so like it comes down to feel, right? Like, does a kid have good scapper traction? Is he pushing the ball? Is he creating good layback? Is the shoulder healthy? Is the elbow healthy? Has he gone through the Enforcer series? Has he done the elbow, scap, and rotator Enforcer series? You know, has he done all these things? Does he check these boxes in order to go to the next step? Is he hinging properly? You know, is he going to move well if we get into a shuffle pull down? You know, and I think you kind of get that feel of and see it by what's happening on the plow wall. You're like, okay, this translates, right? I know this translates. The kid has a feel for it. So now we translate that into a pull down, and it becomes yes or no. Like you see that initial one, you're like, okay, no, that's not it. Like we still got work to do.
It's a legit process that you kind of go through.
Yeah. So I have like a 3 progression med ball phase that guys are going through, and it starts with, you know, on the floor on a flat surface, right? And I'm looking to see if they have a good, if it's tuning in that brace that they need, if it's tuning in that hinge that they need. You know, are they creating a good vertical shin angle? Is everything on time? And then it creates a good power output, like rotational power, right? So we dive into that for about 3 or 4 weeks, and then we progress into more of a mound phase and a mound emphasis on those med balls, right? Like I want these kids to be ready to go off a mound, even though they're not throwing off a mound yet. If I haven't had them off a mound doing something and their body adjusting to that mound, then I'm failing the kid. We can still get work off the mound without actually throwing.
Yeah,
we still incorporate healthy movements without actually throwing.
Yeah, and for that, like, you go through that process, and then, okay, you're in a live game. Those are like 2 totally different.
Yeah, there's a different mindset that comes down to it.
How would you prepare guys for in-game situation like that, as far as the training that you put these guys through?
So I think it's kind of a perfect question, because now, you know, I had a kid yesterday that was getting ready to do his pull downs, and I told him, I said, hey, I was like, this is bump day. This is you're starting. You're getting ready to start a game. I said, I want your prep work to be where you need it to be. I want you to go through your process. What helps you get ready, go through your process like you're going to start, right? You're about to make some high intent throws, get ready, right? So then we dive into the mental side of it with guys. I try to, you know, some guys are get amped up, some guys are stay even keel. I think with, you know, the guys that I'm teaching, I'm giving them more of like what to look for in hitters and the thought process of it.
Because that's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah. You know, you dive into how a hitter reacts to a pitch. Okay, just because I missed with a high end fastball doesn't mean that was a competitive pitch. I can still throw something competitive off of that if I have the command for it, right? Or even the control for it to throw, say, a curveball off of that. You know, so it's teaching guys that awareness to even slow the game down. Like, hey, dude, you're the guy on the hill. Slow it down. You control the game. You know,
Yeah.
Everybody,
So does all this kind of play a role in in their ear as they're kind of going through a bullpen phase?
yeah. So when our guys finish out with the high intent phase, you know, whether it's we're going from plyos to pull downs to well, I should say long toss to pull downs to, you know, a plyo mound phase to getting into bullpens, and then we go into live hitters. I think it's talking about pitch design happening whenever they're in their bullpens. Like, hey, this is what you do with that. And then we'll have guys stand in, right? We'll have guys come over from hitting, come stand in, see a hitter in the box. Nobody's swinging. And so it's like, you know, it gives hitters a chance to see stuff happening.
I used to love doing that when I was playing.
Yeah.
I would get down there before a game and just stand in the box, be like, it's a good pitch, man. Yeah. But it's more or less you're as a hitter, you want to track those pitches. And as a pitcher, it's good because you got someone in the box before a game.
Yeah. I mean, you want to see as much as you can.
To be comfortable. And I had a guy who I played with, and if I wasn't in that box at a certain time, it was crazy, dude. Like, it was a part of his routine, dude. He's like, he would look for me like, where's he at? Go Hector over here. I need him to get in the box. You know, it like, can you explain that? Now, speaking about that, can you speak a little bit about, like, as far as the routine segment, how important it is for a pitcher that's starting or more or less going into a game in general?
Like, routines are so crucial, right? Like, I think baseball players, we're creatures of habit, right? Or even any athlete, like, we're creatures of habit. So if I can go into a day-to-day process of, like, this is what I need to do to start my day. This is what I need to do to be ready. This is what I need to do to excel and exceed and succeed. You go through that routine with everything, and it creates it breeds confidence, right? You breed that confidence, you're unstoppable, right? Even when you get beat, you still win.
Yeah.
You know, because the only person at the day is going to beat yourself you're going to beat yourself. So, you know, I think with my athletes, it's like, hey, go be confident. Go be that guy on the mound. Go be that MFer. Like,
I think
dog.
I saw it this summer, dude, with Corey.
Yeah.
When he was kind of going through his routine, and he had told me, he's like, I'm going to get there early and do that. And I remember you came in and you're like, why the heck did you show up that early? Like, come on, you know it's a time, but it matters.
Yeah.
Right? Because depending on the weather, you know, if you got cold or it's 108 degrees, like, you don't want to get drained out. And it all plays a big role in your performance. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to being mature.
Yep.
Right? Knowing this before, like, that's why it's crazy. You start at a young age and you're teaching all these things. Like, imagine how far you can go. Like, you're going to keep learning. Yeah. That's what amazes me from a baseball player. Like, how much do you know? Not only about the game.
Projection Podcast is brought to you by Icebox Cryotherapy, located in La Cantera. You can reach them at 210-757-3660. Specializing in athletic recovery, pain management, health and wellness, and beauty. Book now.
But by yourself.
Yep.
So, like, going back to now, like, because obviously I was a hitting guy, right? And I like to read swings and be able to see, like, can you talk a little bit about, like, reading swings and as far as how that is related into your program, like, out of a live? Are you, like, behind, like, when they're doing live, are you?
So actually I have a setup in there to where we put a screen in there and I'm recording.
Is it where those bullpen areas are at?
It's right there in the bullpen area.
You just bring the nets back?
We'll bring the nets back. And so you've seen, like, the L screens. We're not technically an L screen, but you've seen the screens we've had in the hitting area, right, where they have like that. So we'll bring that in. I'll prop it up right here in the corner, lefty or righty, so I'll move sides. I'll prop it right there in the corner, and I'm actually I'm talking to guys at the same time while they're going into live ABs, like the initial one. Like, I'll talk to them, like, okay, did you see that read on that swing? Did you see how he, you know, say it's a changeup inside or whatever on a righty, it's right on right changeup, lunges into it. Like, you see how he went into that? Like, you got him out front. Now give him something that's going to pull him away from the plate. You know, go up with that fastball. Yeah. Stay in. Right? Now you got him here. You got him backing up. Now throw the slider. Throw the curveball.
Get him on his heels and spin it, baby.
Then you got him reaching over to the other side of the plate to try and get it. It's you know, I think Bauer talks about it. It's like creating, you know, triangles with your pitches.
Yeah.
You know, and let them work from there.
It's kind of cool. It's like you're playing that video game. It's like, on a video game, you can put the ball where you want, but it's like now you know what to throw. It's like, now I gotta put it right there.
Yeah. I think one of the kids for me that a couple of them, but one of the guys that really understood that was J.M. Ramirez. He's at Parish right now.
Yeah.
Man, the kid's got excellent command, great command, and he knows how to pitch.
Dude, how do you like command wise, right? How does that, like, you're spotting up, like, what would you, for me, for example, if I'm a pitching guy right now and I'm throwing and I can't locate a fastball inside, what would be your way to improve me throwing in that location?
I think if we're going into an approach in a bullpen, right? Like every bullpen's got to have an approach of we're executing fastballs inside, and you give guys a challenge of like you got 10 pitches, you hit 9 out of 10 spots, you get a 90, right? Like so, there's a grade scale without pressure to it, right? Like there's no extra. I'm not gonna make you do the traditional pitching coach, go run 100 sprints because you didn't do this or whatever, something excessive, right? Like. But there's a scale and a standard that you give these guys, and they start having that expectation for themselves. You also make it fun, right? Like, you joke with them in the moment, and you're like, okay, like, let's get to work. Go do that. Like, execute this pitch, right? Have fun, but execute. So whether it's a inside fastball focus, we'll land 10 inside fastball, 10 outside fastballs. Here's your score. Here's how you did today. Here's how you can get better, And really, it comes down to the makeup of the kid and how we're instilling their mindset of, like, it starts from day one. Show up, we're working, we're executing this process, and I think it transitions over into the mound of, like, execute this process, right? Like, focus. So if we have a focus from start to finish, throwing that inside fastball is easy.
It's a never-ending process, dude.
Oh, yeah. It's fun, though.
It's fun, yeah.
You learn to appreciate it.
It's crazy, dude. Like, that goes back to saying you're really training your mind to work with an intent to get better.
Yeah.
Every single time.
100%.
So, like, as far as, like, depth and breaking ball pitches and stuff like that, how would you go about really, really trying to locate these? Because it's hard enough to locate a fastball, especially when you're throwing at high velocity, right? What are ways? Is there, like, different cues that you can, because like a slider or a curveball or something off speed that's working downhill, is there certain, like, target areas that you try to work on? Because the pitch ain't gonna end up where you think it is most of the time if you're throwing some pitches with a lot of movement. Yeah. How do you go about kind of locating that? Usually
some guys, like, visual wise, right? So where my catcher's set up, I actually have, like, some X's behind the plate, right? And there's some orange X's, and I'm like, hey, like, your breaking ball, you're throwing it, and it's going way off this. Say it's a slider, and it's freaking hooking right or hooking left really hard, right? Like, throw it at this X, right? So they have that visual, right? So that's an external cue, right? So they have the external cue of, like, okay, boom, okay, that works for me, right? So then some guys, it's like you give them an internal cue of, like, hey, like, my hand is, like, down here on it, like, actually get the fingers out front and get there with it. Get the fingers out front. So
that'll,
like,
give you more depth too, right?
Yeah, and now that's an internal feel of, like, thought process of, like, okay, just get my fingers out front. All right. So external, my X on the walls, internal, like, feel of where my hand's at on the ball. Right. And so some guys, they work in different realms of that, and they have, different cues. So it's kind of understanding the athlete and where they're at. And you learn that through working with the athlete from the start and then building them up from there. And you're like, okay, I know this guy. Like, if I tell him target basis of, like, throw here, and if I tell this guy of, like, hey, he has a tremendous amount of feel, let's go something internal, like a guy, like, say I had Sam Walbridge come in, and his biggest thing was his arm was late, and I'm sitting here trying to give him drill work. And it was kind of like a learning moment for myself. I'm giving him all this drill work, and he's like, dude, this just isn't working. He's like, I work off of just internal cues. I was like, okay, let's go really simple. Foot strike, arm up.
Yeah.
Foot strike, arm up. The guy's freaking, he's like, wow. Like, I haven't felt this good. This feels amazing,
Yeah.
So.
Like working with these professional guys, like, obviously communication is a big deal because they got to relate back to you and what you have to work on. You get that a lot as far as, like, the youth guys, like, they're pretty good communicating as far as how their performance went in general.
Yeah. So, I mean, guys will come in, I make it a point to check in and say, like, how'd you do this weekend? How's your arm feeling? What did you do this weekend? Did you pitch? How did that go?
Yeah.
What are some struggles you had? Or did you struggle at all, or did you do good? Right? And so usually they get pretty good about talking about, like, well, I felt this in this moment, right? Like, okay, are you analyzing mechanics when you're out there? Like, well, in the bullpen, yeah. Like, what are you doing out there out in the field? Like, well, I had moments where I did this and this and this. I'm like, I don't want you to think about that.
Yeah.
Just go out there and compete, dude. Like, when you're in here, process that, right? When we're actually throwing a bullpen, don't process what your body's doing. You've done all the work to prepare yourself to get to that moment. You go in game, go compete,
Just
throw the
get
ball
it
over
done.
the plate,
So it's a big relationship from you
Yeah.
and the player itself.
Yeah.
You got to both have that trust and respect, huh?
Yeah, it's building them up, like you're building people at the end of the day, right? Like we're building more than just baseball players, right? Like I want these guys to go out and be successful on and off the field and not define themselves through the diamond, right? I think if we give ourselves an identity of I am a baseball player, like cool, but that's what you do. It's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that relationship kind of it's a big process and helping them understand that.
Yeah, because man, everybody's dreams is to play at that level.
Yeah, shoot. I'm sure it was your dream. It was my dream.
But you always got. I mean, and it's all right to dream. I mean,
Absolutely.
Dreaming is what makes you who you are.
Absolutely.
And how much effort you can give back.
Yep.
And be the best, SOB you can possibly be, especially on the diamond. But you think about it, like there's a lot of people that don't understand what it takes to be a really, really, or like a big league prospect.
Yeah.
Like it takes a lot. I don't even know how many players there are in this world, but I feel like the numbers keep rising up and up.
Yeah, everybody's just getting better.
So you got to put yourself in a position where people know what they're doing and people that are going to vouch for you at the end of the day, man.
I think when you think, big league prospect, right? Like one of the kids in the San Antonio area that's kind of rising is Javi, right? Like, Javi.
Mm-hmm.
So like his biggest thing is like kids want to be kids. They want to have fun, right? And the kid's been pretty locked in with the process. And you've seen like a big maturity from junior year now going into senior year, And so with him, it's like it's building the helicopter and flight. And like we were talking about earlier, like he goes out to Boston and nobody know who they didn't know who he was.
Yeah, dude,
right?
It's crazy.
So he goes in and he's 91, 94, touched 5 and 6 and really slams the door, right? It's the main event, Fenway Series, all of that. So he does well, like whatever, 6 Ks or something like that, 3 innings of work. Then he goes out and they're like, hey, come to the Caribbean Series in the DR. So this past weekend he goes out to the DR, goes to the Caribbean Series, 5 Ks, 2 innings. The guy shoves. He may have solidified some stuff for him future-wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't see, they see that on field, but what people don't see is like me and him, really it's him. I'm just there to guide him, right? Like he's going through the process. He's doing the work.
Yeah.
We're there till 10 o'clock at night. People don't see that.
It's like, it's the same thing for me. I'm advising some guys and some prospects and, things change. Like for him, right? Things change dramatically in a week. You're a different cat. You're a prospect now. Everybody's eyes are on you. You got to really be careful. But at the same time, what I try to tell a lot of these guys that I'm advising for, and I was like, be a kid, dude. Have fun. This is your life. Don't take it on being so serious. Be humble. Be appreciative, because that's going to go a further way than you rising up to what you are right now, which is fine, is what you want. But at the same time, you got to treat these kids how to handle that situation, dude, because you can get caught up so bad, dude, that instead of going straight, it'll make a turn real quick, man.
Yep. It's easy to go, left when you're supposed to go right?
Exactly.
Like you wake up and you got 2 choices, yes or no, right or wrong, you either do or you don't. And so that's kind of, with, Javi, Morris Lifton's kind of been that guy that set the ball in motion and has really helped and pushed his development. I come in, when he's 16, 17 and, okay, we got to move better doing this, and that. And so the team that, Jav has had behind him, and obviously, like, it comes from a really good family, really good people, like, great support system. And then coming from the team that now at DST that he has, like, it's home and feels for that kid. This kid eats, sleeps, and breathes baseball and just turned himself into a prospect.
So remember when we were out there with Corey, we were with Brian Reeves from the Yankees, and he was telling yourself, because all that process, remember he was telling us, he goes, I want to know who these guys are training with. And I think he mentioned a few things with Corey, like, who are you training with, you know? And if you're training with elite guys, you're going to be a part of that circle. They're going to set you apart.
Yep.
So it's like the same thing. If you're hanging out with successful people, eventually one day you're going to be successful just like those people you're hanging out with. If you're hanging out with people that ain't really doing much, kicking back, you know, you're going to probably lead into that role. Yep. And at the end of the day, like, you guys are providing very, very well athletes, where those athletes are seeing the guys that are above them and they're trying to reach for that. So it's more like competition, but at the same time, it's like, I'm involved.
Yeah.
And when you naturally feel you're involved, you got the confidence.
Yeah.
And I go into DST and all those kids, they got confidence, man. They got personality. They're enjoying it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're enjoying working out. Like,
the culture's different, man.
It's a good culture. That's what I'm saying, man. It's a blessing to be able to see stuff like that.
100%. It's for me and learning everything with these kids, you know, like yesterday was a pretty humbling experience, and like the kids were talking and they're like, dude, like all the best pitchers come here. That's a humbling thing for me to hear that, and the kids say that, and I'm like, okay, like it's little moments like that I really appreciate, and you know, seeing kids excel and grow again as people and human beings and baseball players it's special.
You're being very helpful.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, you're being realistic.
Yeah, 100%.
If a kid sucks, you tell him he sucks, you tell him what he needs to work on. But at the end of the day, you're being realistic. I think those are the baseball minds know that. The good ones know that you got to be up front and be realistic in this sport.
You know, I have a kid that, you know, they'll pull down, say, 79. Like, what do I need to do to get better? Like, you got a lot of work to do, man. Like, you got to gain weight. You want to throw hard, you need to gain weight, right? Mass equals gas, whole formula and all that. So it's like, if you're being honest with these kids, right, you're not sugarcoating anything, and you're just telling them you're straightforward in a nice way, right? Like, I'm not going to be an asshole. But, like, if I'm honest with these kids, man, like, hey, you get to, you know, 95 on a pull down, you got a shot to throw 88, 89, 90 off a mound. Like, that's just the real part of it. You know, so there's a goal for you to get to. It's attainable, 100%. You know, but what are the steps you're taking to achieve that goal? Are you staying right with your diet? You know, when I shouldn't even say diet. Are you eating as much as you need to be eating as an athlete?
Yeah.
Right? Are you in the weight room consistently? Are you know, if you got the assessment, are you doing your re-education process? Are you being thorough with everything you need to do? And even then, are you doing a little bit extra on your own, whether it's, you know, 5 minutes of stretching before bed or 5 minutes of stretching in the morning when you get up? Like, are you actually pushing yourself, not just saying that you're doing it?
Yeah. It goes back to, oh, this is what you want.
Yeah.
Go out and get it.
Yeah, I think, you know, talking with Lee, like, you know, the depth of your convictions will determine the heights of your success. That's through all the conversations we've had from the very beginning. That was one of the biggest things in talking with him. That's always stuck with me.
Do you ever have these conversations with, like, your guys, like is this really what you want to do, dude? Like, will they open up and be like, dude, I'm all in.
100%.
Tell me what I need to do so I can get it done, so I can be at the top.
100%. You know, that if I'm driving, say I get done coaching on a weekend and I'm in Houston coaching, right? And I'm driving back, it's, you know, these kids will answer the phone at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock Saturday, right? Like, these high school kids don't answer. I call them like, hey, what are you doing? I'm just sitting at the house like, hey, you know, you got a shot to do something special, right?
Yeah. Man.
But, like, this is what, like, you need to buy into this process. Like, I know it seems like a lot, but if you know, you can still be a kid, have fun, go hang out with your friends, but be smart, right? Mm-hmm. Be careful with the company you keep. But if you actually buy into this process, you have a shot to do something, whether it gets you a college education or even propels you to the next level of beyond, right? Like, I can't predict a professional baseball player, right? Yeah. Like, only way of knowing is these kids buying in the process, see where they end up, see where you land, and from there it's like, okay, let's ride.
At the end of the day, that's pretty much, you said it perfectly. You can ensure that your life and the way you think is going to be a lot better by enjoying this process of baseball and trying to be a better baseball player.
Yeah,
it's not a lot of people understand that, man. It's a grind. It's a day-to-day process, but it's going to help you out beyond, man. Yeah. It's helped me out tremendously.
100%.
It's put a toll to me. Like, sometimes you're like, wow, I'm thinking a lot different, and you're giving back to the game.
Yeah, and you look at everything, and you're like, all right, every kid wants to play in MLB.
Yeah.
Say you do get the shot, right? You're like, I'm going to MLB. Dude, you missed the moments that matter getting there, right? Like, once you're there, right? Cool. But you miss the moments that you're supposed to be appreciating along the way.
Enjoy it, man.
Yeah, just enjoy it.
Be a kid.
That's one of the things that I've learned going through the process. Like, enjoy it. Have fun. Ride with it, man. Don't focus on the end result because you never get to the end.
Yeah. Do the little things and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because now that I've been seeing a lot of baseball, it's fun to see guys that 8, 9, 10 years old, and now they're playing pro ball. It's like, dude, that's special. That's a special and a blessing to be a part of.
100%.
So, like, as far as like the pitching side, I know you kind of have that, pretty much situated with a lot of pitchers. For like position guys, is there also like an opportunity for these guys to get assessments too? I know, Trevino goes in there, and did he go a part of that?
Yeah, so
that process as well.
Yeah, when Lee Fiocchi came in and did all his programming, and did his assessment process, right, and groomed Evan to he's still grooming Evan to get him even better at the process, as good as Evan is now. But, position players can come in and do that, right? So there were some things that they saw on his assessment. I don't want to go too far into it, but there's some things they saw in his assessment where they were like, we don't like this. This stands out. So let's focus on this re-education process and go through this. I mean, this guy's in there, he's up at 5 a.m. He's there 7 a.m. Lift doesn't start till 11. So he's in there at 7 a.m. going through all his re-education process, right? And then we're going through, catching at 8. And then we're going through hitting at 9. And we're going into him chilling out for a little bit, or even throwing at 10. And then he's lifting at 11.
So he's literally going through the 5 tools during the whole day, pretty much, or through the whole process of the workout.
So he goes through this, process of the assessment, and this, they started seeing things that they like, and he improved at a freaking crazy rate. So we bring in the force plate, and Lee brings him in, tests that stuff out, and his propulsion numbers went through the roof. I don't know enough about the force plates right now. We're working on getting some, but what we saw in his propulsion rate, right, acceleration force, go through the roof. It's the fastest they've seen anybody go through that.
Really?
Yeah. So, and he was moving better. Everything was great. Speaking with him a couple weeks ago, he's like, everything feels good, man. It's crazy. Now this guy's in the postseason, freaking.
He was an all-star, man. He was an all-star from Corpus, right?
Yep, Corpus, boy, South Texas.
Love it, dude. So, I love seeing those guys down there make it happen.
Yeah,
it gives a lot of people hope.
Yeah.
There's
one thing I can say about him, absolutely one of the hardest workers, if not the hardest worker in the room. Phenomenal human being. Right.
That's awesome. That makes it even better.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's pretty special. He's going to do some special things for a while. So it's cool to see everything and all the work he's put in.
That's cool that he's put himself just like a normal human being.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the people you want to be around, man.
There's a serious side to him, and there's a side where he's goofy, right? He's still a kid. He's
everybody
still having fun.
Everybody has that, man.
So
it's just who do you show it around?
Right.
He shows it around the people he's comfortable with.
Yeah, 100%. So, and I think when you're around a culture like that, it's special. So it's funny.
He'll be back. He'll be back after the.
Yeah. So he'll be back with a few accolades. Hopefully a World Series ring. That'd be pretty cool.
Man, dude, that's a blessing to be able to be a part of.
Absolutely.
All that. Well, not only him, but you have a lot of good prospects.
Oh yeah. We got 2 kids from the Mets organization right now.
Yep.
We have another kid with a national organization. You know Cuevas, right, Mikey?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mikey.
he's in there doing his thing. I think he's got a pretty good shot. Another South Texas kid that can do something special.
Yeah, and he got picked up at a young age too.
Yeah, straight out of high school.
Dude, before we kind of wrap it up, as far as can you a little bit more information if people want to get a hold of you or ask you questions about the assessment or pitching or baseball in general? Do you have a Instagram or Twitter or something where they can follow you, or maybe an email?
So really the main source that I'm using right now is Twitter. Just look me up, all caps, at DST and then _ Trey. There's a capital T and the rest is undercase. Instagram, I mean, you can DM me on there. I'm not on there too much. It's the same thing, at DST _ Trey. Just shoot me a text, let me know, and then we'll move forward from there.
I saw your Instagram the other day. You need to post some posts, dude.
Dude, I got some crazy content coming.
Do you really?
It's gonna be pretty special. So we're working on building up at least 7 weeks of content, and then
see, it makes it even better now.
Yeah,
Perfect time to add.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of take everything from being an athlete and all that other stuff, and like let's kind of get a little more focused in the baseball side. So I got some good stuff coming. From working on a remote app to putting more content out there for people to kind of outsource and learn. You have all these other pitching sites doing all this stuff, and it's kind of, I'm at that point where like, all right, it's time.
Yeah.
So,
dude, but I'm very blessed that I got the opportunity to know you a little more, dude, and be a part of y'all's program, you and Morris. I'm blessed to be able to try to make a difference, not only for the local guys, but for baseball guys in general, man. I mean, I'm blessed that I can be able to call you and be like, hey, dude, you need to go after this guy, or I'll give you this guy's information. Come in and watch a workout. Like, that's a blessing to me, dude, because obviously I'm where I'm at, and people like you, I won't make it. You know what I mean? So thank you once again, dude, for not only coming in, but for being so loyal to me, man. That goes a long way, dude.
Absolutely, man. No, thank you. It's been a blessing, like crossing paths, and now we got this open line of communication, man, and I think it's gonna be something special and moving forward. Like,
oh, certainly, man.
It's gonna be fun.
I got a vision to change San Antonio baseball, dude. So and guys like you and Morris and all those other great minds, man, when we can all come together and help these players, I think that's the ultimate goal. Yeah, because it ain't about me no more, man. No, it's about the up and coming. That's the way I look at it.
That's the thing, it's like I think. I want to see, like you said, San Antonio baseball needs to grow. There's a major uplift that's happening, and there's some moving parts going around. I think we're going to play a big integral process in that. And again, it's not about us; it's about these kids and getting them right exposure.
It's a good feeling when you get that, coach. Thank you for all you done, or or a parent, thank you for all you done. You've changed my kid. Like, you hear that, it's like, dude, that's
impact.
What did I do? What did I do again? It's like you want to cry, man. Right. You get emotional thinking about all that stuff.
Chills, you get everything.
But it's the truth, man. A lot of people need guidance.
Yeah.
And if we got the opportunity and the knowledge to break it down, why not use it for someone else?
Yep.
Make them better.
It's impact.
Impact, dude.
So we're gonna do some special things, and we'll have to do this again and talk some more baseball.
I want you to give me an assessment, bro. See what I can. That's fascinating. I want to be in there and kind of check out those assessments, see how they work through.
Yeah, for sure. Come by on a Wednesday. I'll let you know, like at a time, and kind of see what we do and see the environment, the after school environment, and come in during the pro hours. I'll let you kind of be around that. It'll be pretty special.
Sounds good, big dog. Appreciate you once again coming in, man.
Absolutely.
All right, babe.
That was solid.
That was a good one.
Chop it up all day.
I could have chopped it up in a few hours.
I know. I was like, hey, let's keep rolling.